I'm Alex Morash, and let's queer up politics. Biden-era protections for LGBT in the workplace scrapped by Trump administration. On Thursday, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission scrapped 2024 guidelines that declared harassment of workers due to having had abortions or transgender identities unlawful workplace discrimination. Since President Trump started his second term last year, the EEOC has stopped pursuing complaints filed by transgender employees and has launched probes into workplace diversity policies. In a joint statement issued before the vote, a dozen former EEOC and U.S. Department of Labor officials said, quote, "This action is likely to increase the amount of harassment that occurs in workplaces across the country," end quote. The Trump-appointed EEOC Chair, Andrea Lucas, said ahead of the vote that the EEOC had overstepped its authority by issuing guidelines beyond protections created by the law. Now, this is something that, in my work, I deal with like the different progressive coalitions that deal with the EEOC, and they've been pulling back a lot of the LGBTQ protection in the last couple of weeks. And what's odd is, these people, they'll make up that, this is not in the law. The Biden administration started doing some of this stuff after the Supreme Court cases during its term, protecting trans and LGBTQ identities in general. So this is just absolutely bizarro land stuff. But, I always remind people, when it comes to discrimination, whether it be race, sexual orientation, gender, abortion, protection, anything, the best workplace protections is the union, because you need someone on your side to help you, because the enforcement of these laws has always been very hard, and if you don't have your own advocate, the company has HR as an advocate and their lawyers. You need your own advocate, and a union's the most simplest way to do that, unless you want to always have a lawyer on retainer, which I'm sure we all do.
Oh yeah, of course, in my back pocket, right?
Yeah.
Well, folks, rolling back protections doesn't make harassment disappear. It gives it permission, unfortunately, And when the government stops defending trans workers and people who've had abortions, workplaces don't get neutral. They get hostile, and they get hostile quick. I don't know if you boys have worked in an office, but when you work in that kind of environment, it's got all the ingredients to blow up when it comes to when. And this is exactly what this is all about.
I've heard some toxic stories about that. I was fortunate because I was working with J.P. Morgan and Morgan Stanley. So we've had DEI initiatives from the early 2000s. And so it was such a blessing to work for those type of organizations. But there are definitely, even newspapers in New York that, also have different types of, that they're eliminating a lot of these DEIs and just doing away with them and just kind of putting it under the rug, more or less.